Great. Okay, people are slowly trickling. I'll give another minute for people to come in, and then we'll get going. I hope you're all well this morning. I didn't get my cup of tea, so you might you might need to bear with me. Great, okay. Well, numbers are coming, slowly trickling in. You never know, you sort of wait for it to stop, but you're never quite sure. Okay. So welcome to today's webinar. I'm going to kick off as people start to slowly come in, just with some general introductions. Amy's going to give a bit more of a technical intro in a minute, and just to share some of our etiquette for Zoom webinars, although I'm sure that many of you are very familiar with that. So I'm Sarah Williams. I'm the Programme Director at Sustain, the Alliance for Better Food and Farming, and delighted today to be presenting and co-hosting this webinar on how councils can support a good food economy, with a particular focus on retail engagement, and some of the work that we've been doing with our colleagues here today in terms of good food retail, using some examples and case studies from London, but also really delighted to have Catherine from Scotland sharing some of the fantastic work they've been doing up in Scotland. So we've got about 1.5 hours. It's a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really just to whet your appetite and to really start to explore this idea of what a good food economy is. So how can we support a good food economy, retailer engagement in London and Scotland? So this is something that Sustain, and I'm sure many of you have been exploring over a number of years. So this isn't something particularly new, but it does feel particularly pertinent at the moment. So not only are we all looking at recovery from the sort of economic downturn of last year, but we're also looking at how we can really achieve a step change in health, and particularly in public health, and really look to improve those health outcomes. As well as this, we're looking at how we can address our climate and nature in emergency, and the nature of it being an emergency, we need to be doing that in a timely fashion. And so it does feel like the good food economy is a place where all those quite siloed entities can really be pushed forward together, and we're really here today to start to do some of that joining up. We're also delighted that so many of you are interested in the role that local authorities can play in this agenda, and by association the real opportunities for local food partnerships to push forward on this good food economy idea. For those of you not aware of Sustain, we are the Alliance for Better Food and Farming. We've been around for over 20 years. We've got about 100 national organisations in our alliance who come together to campaign on key food and farming issues. And this work that we're presenting here today falls very much under our London umbrella, which we call our London Food Link network. And for anyone interested in finding out more about London Food Link, you can actually join that network. So do visit our website and find out more. So today is the culmination of not only 2 years of our work on good food retail in London, but also marks the day that we publish a new report. So for those of you that know Sustain well, we are known for our fantastic publications, and we have a new one, Good Food Economy and How Councils Can Support Good Food Enterprises. And this really evolved out of this work, along with some work that we did last year for our response, recovery and resilience report, which I'll talk a bit later about. So really just want to thank everyone in advance. We've got some fantastic speakers here for you today, some really inspirational women who over the last year or a couple of years that we've worked with. And we also want to extend our thanks to the Mayor of London and the GLA's food team who have really supported this work. And I think Jenny's here today and will be joining in the panel discussion later. So I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's going to do a quick run through the agenda, give you a bit of our Zoom etiquette before we kick into the presentations. Amy, do you want me to put up the slide, or?
Yeah, if you could put up the agenda slide. Thanks, Sarah, and yeah, welcome everyone to the webinar. So just a few sort of quick housekeeping points. So this is being run as a Zoom webinar, so as participants, your videos will be off and your microphones will be kept off. But please do introduce yourselves in the chat box, as some of you have started doing already, so we can see who's here today. But if you want to ask any questions to the speakers or any of the panelists, please do that using the Q&A function, which you'll see at the bottom of your screen, because that way we can ask the panelists the questions at the end when we have a Q&A session. And also panelists can answer live if they want to. Just to run through the agenda for the webinar today that you can see on the screen now. So I'm going to, first we're going to hear from Sarah about what is a good food economy, and as she's already mentioned, the launch of our new report on this. Then I'm going to be summarising the good food retail projects that 11 councils have been running over the last 2 years, supported by the London Food Link team and the Greater London Authority. Then Stephanie Rice of Rice Marketing, who's worked with some of these councils running these good food retail projects in Greenwich, Kingston and Southwark. We'll talk about that in more detail. And then we're going to hear from Catherine Hanafin at Greenwich, who'll give us insight into how this worked in Greenwich. And then from Jabeen Shah in Kingston, who'll talk about the project in Kingston. And then finally, we're excited to have Catherine Neal here today, who's the director of the Healthy Living Programme in Scotland. And she'll be talking about healthy retail work in Scotland. So before we get started, we wanted to run a quick poll to ask the audience some questions. So I'm just trying to get that up on the screen now. So hopefully you can see that. So please start voting, choosing the right answer. So we wanted to find out where you work and why you're here today. So if you could select what sort of fits you best out of national government, local government, food partnerships. So I'm hoping that the participants in the audience can see the votes coming in like I can. Just keep this. Okay, so we've got a lot of local government, which is interesting. So I guess sort of expected, but also researchers and food partnerships, but mainly local government. Okay, the majority have voted, so I'm going to move down. Oh, people have already started voting on the next one, great. And then to what extent do you agree with this statement that my local area has a good food economy? So do you strongly agree, somewhat agree, you think your local area is making progress, or you don't agree? So interesting, yeah, the majorities think making progress, but a long way to go. Okay, thanks everyone. That's just really useful for us to get an understanding of who's here, and also, yeah, to see what your opinion is of your good food economy before we've started to explain what we mean by that. So I'm going to hand back to Sarah now to introduce Sustain's work on a good food economy.
Great. Okay, thanks, Amy, for that. And yeah, really interesting. So making progress, but a long way to go. So it sounds like you're all in the right place, which is good to hear. Let me just see if I can make my slide move on. So yes, so back to me. So I'm just going to give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour, really, of our new report that's out today, and I'm sure that my colleagues will be manically posting a link to the report in the chat, if not now, maybe towards the end, so we don't distract you. So yeah, we're delighted really to announce that we've launched this new report today, Good Food Economy, How Councils Can Support Good Food Enterprises, with findings from London. And as I mentioned before, this started life as a short briefing, which we were going to publish after the Response, Recovery and Resilience report at the tail end of last year, but really quickly grew into something that felt a bit more chunky than a briefing. And so now we would class it as a fully fledged publication, which you can download as of today. And so today's a really great point for us. This is not the start of this work, and it's definitely not the end. As many of you say, we're making progress, but it does feel like there is a long way to go. But this work has been germinating for some time. And so that means that there's some fantastic examples of good practice that we can all lean into and we can all build upon. And for much of our work, this straddles whether it's farm to fork or sea to sandwich or however you like to talk about the food system. The good food economy really represents that bit in the middle. And we think that that's something that councils and sustainable food partnerships can very much be a part of. And we hope that for many of our food colleagues that haven't been working so much in this economy space, or for those with economic development experience that have not really been focusing on healthy and affordable food, that hopefully you can come and meet us in the middle. So this presentation will give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but the report will really act as a guide for you out there. And in sustained fashion, we've taken a vision of a good food economy and turned that into very practical steps, which our friends and colleagues out there can use while they're trying to build a better food system. So what is a good food economy? So we love a definition. If not any reason, then we can all argue about whether it's right or not. So this is a definition of a good food economy. So it should consist of a mixture of food business and enterprises that are diverse in terms of size and the types of people and organisations owning and running them. It provides access to healthy, affordable and sustainable food. So our shorthand is good, but if you want to unpack that, that's healthy, affordable and sustainable food, and works to reduce impacts on nature and global communities, promotes and celebrates local and cultural food. So why support a good food economy? Well, hopefully for those of you present here today, you don't really need any convincing, but for any colleagues that do, and those of a political persuasion, you can really see that the good food economy hits those multiple agendas. So this is about health and healthy food environments, and how we can create those environments that support our other programs and initiatives rather than continually undermining them by selling unhealthy food cheaply. But also, how do we create that triple bottom line where we're weaving in climate change and ecological emergency into all of the actions that we take so that it's not siloed, so that we're really building an economy that takes note of climate change? And lastly, how do we use our work in the good food economy to really build that and boost that community wealth at a local level? So we can really see how this work fits across all of those agendas. And evidence is gathering on what we know is intuitively right, which is that good food businesses are good for the economy. Things like the local multiplier effect and job creation can all happen within that space. For Sustain, you'll see when our new strategy comes out, hopefully very soon, I think it's just gone to design stage, you'll see that we've very firmly rooted the good food economy into our vision of a better food and farming system. We feel really quite invigorated about this area. I think the time is right for really for us to take up this challenge. We've been delving into this area for a number of years, and in particular our work in London. Many of you may go back as far back as our Buy Well project, which I think happened over a decade ago, and some of our work on with New Covent Garden Market Authority. But we continue to build that economy theme into the work that we do. My colleagues in the Sustainable Food Places team are very much focused on how we can really push forward the good food economy. And Ren, who's here with us today, has been working with colleague Ben on looking at things like local economic partnerships. So watch the space in terms of Sustainable Food Places, because I'm sure that this theme is going to be very firmly rooted there. And also you'll see lots of our networks here at Sustain, so whether that's the Food Co-ops network, our Real Bread campaign or London Food Link, are sort of jam-packed with the sort of good food enterprises that we think we need to really build a good food economy. And then most recently, our work on good food retail, which Amy will be going into in a bit more detail. So the report outlines what our measures are of a good food economy and how you'll know when you've got there. So things like a variety of thriving outlets and good food retail work, targeted business support and creating good infrastructure. The report also has lots of practical steps that you can take as local authority officers or strategists, whether that be mapping access, tailoring your business support, looking at procurement as a tool. All of those ideas are in that report. As I mentioned before, this report, the good food economy work, was really triggered by our work on response, resilience and recovery. So last year's Good Food for London report took a deep dive into London's food response as a result of COVID-19. And for the first time, we asked lots of questions about good food economy, really dipping our toe into the water and seeing how our food and other colleagues responded to that call. And what we came up with was a wealth of information, far more than we could get into that report, and hence this report was born. What's really exciting now is it means that this report is rooted in practice. It's rooted in the practice of local authority people that are already doing this work. So what are London councils doing? So as I say, we go into a bit of detail with this in the report as well as in the 3R report. But before COVID, most councils supported local food businesses. But leading councils were targeting their approach to improve the health or sustainability of those food businesses. So it's going above and beyond for those that are really hitting those agendas. During COVID, most local authorities supported food SMEs to stay open, respond to the crisis and recover their businesses. And I think there's been a real recognition of the importance of convenience stores in particular in food supply during the pandemic. But leading councils were building a recovery plan with extra support for local retail to provide healthy and sustainable food. And so we really clearly see that the leadership councils are going that one step beyond. The report also goes into some more examples of what leadership looks like in local authorities. So from examples like Tower Hamlets, who've very much embedded the food sector into their waste action plans, as well as their Sustainable Food Partnership lead, Women's Environment Network, who have won a Climate Action Fund bid and are very much going to be integrating access to food with the climate and nature emergency. Places like Southwark have built into their economic wellbeing strategy and ambition for all residents to have access to affordable and healthy food. And now they're going through the process of seeing how they make that a reality. Hackney's sustainable procurement strategy includes some great targets around food and agricultural practices. And at a more practical level, places like Croydon have kept charges low for fruit and vegetable sellers on one of their markets. Lewisham are supporting the setup of social supermarkets and so on. And finally, what next? So after today's report launch, which includes many recommendations for our council colleagues, as well as national government funders and our friends within the Sustainable Food Partnerships Network, we'll be continuing our work within this theme. So for those of you who aren't aware of some of that, we do a lot of work on Healthy Start promotion through our Veg Cities campaign, which really is about driving access and equality to healthy food. Our Sustainable Food Places work is continuing to drive this economy theme forward. And as I mentioned, some of the work around local economic partnerships, and do have a look at our report on that if you're not aware. Our Good Food Retail funding is coming to an end at the end of this month, but we're very much looking at what the next steps are for that project. So working with our colleagues, including Stephanie here, who's doing some great work on wholesalers, also thinking about what the appetite is for the equivalent of a healthy catering commitment for retail. And very much placing good food retail within the vision of a healthy food neighbourhood. We're also delighted that we're going to be involved in the Food Routes Incubator work that the GLA has set up, and we'll be really looking for the opportunities to support a good food economy as part of that work. So that's it. I encourage you to download, have a flick through the report, come back to us, let us know what's happening in your world in terms of this agenda. We're really in an exploratory stage and excited about building some really fruitful partnerships as we go forward. So thank you. And now I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's going to give us a little bit of a recap on the good food retail work that we've been running over the last couple of years. I will stop sharing.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm just going to share my screen now. We are. Hope you can all see that. So I'm going to run through the good food retail projects that have been running over the past 2 years with London councils. So what is the good food retail project? So in the London food strategy, the mayor recognised the importance of good food retail. And so as a pilot in 2019, in partnership with the Greater London Authority, the GLA, and the London Food Link team at Sustain, and Guy's and St Thomas's charity in 2019, 6 London boroughs were supported to develop and implement good food retail plans. And these plans were unique to the local boroughs that they took place in, but largely they worked to improve the healthy and affordable food offer in convenience stores, also at markets, and to increase the take-up of Healthy Start vouchers in local retailers, as well as to develop strategic plans to influence and lead these agendas across boroughs. And following a successful pilot of 6 projects in 2019, the Mayor then funded a further 5 projects across London in 2020, which have spanned over into this year and are actually all finishing up this month. So there's been 11 boroughs working across a variety of ambitious projects, and I'm going to summarise a few of these now. So in 2019, the projects ran for 6 months, and they were in the boroughs of Bexley, Camden, Croydon, Newham, Kensington and Chelsea and Southwark. And the main focus for these projects were improving the healthier food available in convenience stores and on display in convenience stores. Also improving the uptake and availability of Healthy Start vouchers. And in Croydon, for example, they tried to improve the healthier food options and stalls available at markets. And in Newham, for example, they developed a sort of council-wide action plan for good food retail across the council. So we continue to sort of stay in touch with these councils to see how they're getting on the following year and if they're continuing this work. And then last year, and spanning over into this year, we worked alongside the GLA to support 5 boroughs run good food retail projects. So these were in Haringey, Redbridge, Kingston, Greenwich and Enfield. And I'm going to talk about these in a bit more detail now and what we learned from these projects. So the project spanned across areas that I've already mentioned, but this year in particular, they worked with retailers directly to improve access to healthy food, also with families and communities, as well as local retailers and fruit and veg markets to improve the uptake and the awareness of Healthy Start vouchers. And also some of the councils mapped access to food in the local area and where there were food deserts, and then worked across council departments to deliver these projects. So what have we learned? So we learned a huge amount over the last sort of year or so from these projects and working alongside these projects. And first of all, and probably unfortunately that stands out most of all for all of us, was having to adapt to the COVID-19 pandemic. So obviously this had huge impacts on all councils generally anyway. But in terms of these good food retail projects, the councils had to adapt very, very quickly because the plans that they had made to engage with retailers, for example, in a lot of cases had to change or be adapted. So, for example, face-to-face retailer engagement was no longer possible in the heightened lockdowns, and many council staff were redeployed, for example, amongst other things. So this meant that some projects had to change what they had aimed to do. So, for example, in Enfield and in Haringey, rather than work directly with stores like they'd planned to do, in Enfield they had to they'd aimed to increase fruit and veg sales in deprived areas in convenience stores, but they had to adapt, and they've now used their good food retail project funding to support a food pantry in Edmonton offering healthy food for an affordable membership, as well as working with local retailers sort of online to try and increase Healthy Start vouchers. And similarly in Haringey, rather than engaging one-on-one with retailers and trying to get them to increase Healthy Start awareness and take Healthy Start vouchers, they found that it wasn't easy to engage with retailers in this time over the phone. So instead, they've trained up volunteers from their voluntary sector partner, the Bridge Renewal Trust, to train volunteers to specifically engage independent retailers and families about Healthy Start themselves. And just on this point as well, just to say that all the councils adapted amazingly well to the pandemic considering, and managed to deliver successful projects despite the situation. And we hope that these projects will help them ongoing with local food resilience. So then in terms of working with convenience stores and markets, particularly Kingston and Greenwich focused on working with independent shops in deprived areas. And Redbridge also worked with local retailers in engaging them to uptake with Healthy Start. So as I already mentioned, it was hard to access retailers at this time and all the councils had to adapt. And we knew that face-to-face engagement with the retailers was best. So Redbridge came up with a sort of way of adapting by engaging their environmental health team along with their public health team with this project, who already had connections with some retailers. And they went along to these retailers and they thanked them for the work that they'd already done in COVID and offered to promote them through local magazines and the council's social media, for example. And that way they managed to engage 70 businesses with information and training on Healthy Start vouchers. And we also learned with convenience stores that they respond best to the economic benefits of introducing Healthy Start vouchers and healthy baskets. So Stephanie Rice is going to be talking more about this, I'm sure. But for example, in Greenwich, they found it successful to prove to the stores that actually they can increase sales and healthier food options with these projects. And also to say that we found markets had huge potential, so they could also engage with the Healthy Start vouchers, for example, market stalls. And then next, with Healthy Start, we saw in general, there was very low uptake and poor communication from the scheme itself, and many people didn't actually know about the Healthy Start scheme. For example, in London, there's less than 50% uptake at the moment by eligible families with these vouchers. In Haringey, for example, they got an impressive, I think, 300 more families signed up than were before to these vouchers. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic and the current situation, more and more families became eligible. So their overall uptake in the borough hasn't actually increased, to give an example. But they, for example, ran training with public health experts across frontline teams and translated communication materials on Healthy Start to other languages, which they saw as a success to increasing awareness. And the councils also found that training and connecting with other teams. So for example, Kingston connected with a local children's centre manager and Haringey connected with their local voluntary sector to train people up on what Healthy Start was. And they saw that as a successful way to engage retailers and local people in the Healthy Start scheme. And finally, we saw the importance of cross-council working to keep the momentum going with these projects. So for example, Greenwich successfully engaged across their council, have been working with the economic development, public health and environmental health team and holding meetings to take their Good Food Retail project forward. And Redbridge worked with their environmental health team, as I already mentioned, to join their public health team for the project. And so hope that in this way they can continue their work. And we found as Sustain and the GLA, by building a network of these projects and not using a one-size-fits-all model, knowing that all the councils are going to have different aims and objectives and different needs, that actually this flexibility allowed the councils to run successful projects that we hope will be continued and be worthwhile for them. And we hope that this network of the councils coming together in group meetings can continue, and we can continue to share resources and learn from each other. And so my final slide here is a quote from Jenny at the GLA. And it's just because I wanted to reiterate that despite the difficulties this year and the emergency situation, all the councils did amazingly well to pursue the projects during the pandemic. And as I mentioned, we really hope that these projects can spark things off in the councils and can continue to support good food retail and resilience. So thank you. That's the end of my slide. I'm going to hand back to Sarah now to introduce our next speaker. Just stop sharing.
Sorry, everyone moved. So as I went to unmute myself, it all moved over. Thank you for that, Amy. And just to say that we will be pulling together, we've got a great report that was pulled together by Maddie, who worked on good food retail in the first year, and we'll be updating that report with the findings from this year's cohort. And as Amy suggested, this year was particularly challenging for the local authorities involved, just because of the physical limitations in being able to engage with retailers, but they still managed to do some fantastic work and sort of pull it out the bag, I suppose, particularly at the end, and particularly through the help and support of our next speaker, which is Stephanie Rice of Rice Marketing Limited. I call Stephanie our retail guru because she really does understand the ins and outs of how convenience the store sector operates and how to really get into the headspace and to think like somebody that runs that runs a small store, which isn't always easy for those of us doing other jobs, and particularly people working within a council environment. So she really has a deep knowledge of the London convenience store and the sector. And has been able to access some sort of really great supply chains in terms of looking at the wholesale sector and demonstrating really how a good campaign can focus on the profits for convenience stores and their merchandising and how to really access healthier food. So it doesn't always come from the place that we might come from. So she's been working across a number of local authorities for a number of years. I think probably about 12 years we've known of Stephanie's work, yeah, she's here today to talk a bit about how she's been involved in the Good Food Retail project. So over to you, Stephanie.
Thanks, Sarah. That's fantastic. I'm just going to share my screen now. Hold on. I just need to get permission to share. Hold on. Right. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. Right. Okay. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to join today. And it's been really fantastic seeing this project through over 2 years. And it really does feel that there is real momentum gaining in this area. And having worked in this area for so many years, it is nearly 13 years, there is a definite step change in both how this is gaining in importance, but equally how independent businesses are responding. I'm going to talk to you about the work that we supported Greenwich and Kingston this year on the Good Food Retail projects for 2020, and start with Greenwich and really talking about the types of stores that we engage with when we talk about independent retailers. We have a hierarchy of segmentation. Convenience stores are either very tiny neighbourhood stores, sort of under 750, 800 square feet stores that service a very tight local community. They are high street stores, which are serving a larger footfall, and larger stores up to around 3,000 square feet. And then you have ambassador stores such as these in Greenwich, where these are larger independents, around 4,000, 5,000 square feet, and can actually act as the main alternative to for top-up food shopping. And in fact, a full weekly shop, it would be possible in these stores. And we targeted 3 of them, and we wanted to get a representative of where customers shopped. So we actually focused on Google reviews, and we identified those shops that had the best Google reviews in order to be able to start pinpointing where to target our efforts. We basically chose Plumstead within Greenwich because it was, and we worked very closely with the business development team, again, about cross-council working. This was a great way of engaging not just the public health teams, but business development as well. And we knew that Plumstead was receiving a considerable investment, so focused our efforts there. We also knew that there'd been an issue around affordability, and that convenience stores were typically selling items, the same items, for considerably more than multiple competition. We conducted a basket study of healthier items that we had used from a piece of work commissioned in Southwark the year before. So again, cross-council sharing, using best practice, sharing best practice is so important that you don't reinvent the wheel. So we used a report from Southwark, which identified 39 items that families in Southwark and Lambeth had said, if we were able to buy these locally, we would be able to feed our families healthily on a budget. We compared that 39 items and against Tesco, and we were able to take those findings to the 3 stores to show them that they were between 20 and 40% more expensive than Tesco on the similar item. Obviously, you have to take into account the fact that Tesco have low own label and their cheapest tier label as well, which independents don't always have. But that was what we looked at. And we then worked with them to reduce that affordability gap by showing them firstly the facts, which they were really appreciative of, and showing them that if they were to change the price and reduce the price, we would actually support them with promoting that price difference using point of sale that they can't get access to. These independent stores are not creative and don't have the tools to create good designed point of sale. So they really responded to it, and we were able to basically we reduced the overall basket by 9%. We were able to do that by really asking the retailers to invest and to say, in return for your investment, we will drive traffic to your stores. Not only will we give you great communication, but we're also going to promote you through our council channels. So again, a lesson is using your council assets in the best possible way to help these independent businesses be successful. It meant that the retailers trusted us and were willing to go with it and actually give it a try, because we were asking them to reduce margins. We also showed them what healthy meant. We were able to go around the store and talk to them about what is healthier lines. They're not always lines that they don't stock. In fact, two of the retailers had very good fruit and veg availability. But we were able to show them the importance of, say, free-range eggs, of which they didn't stock them. We were able to show the things like Alpro milks. They didn't stock those either. And things like tin tomatoes, saying, look, if you were to do a deal on 4 for a price, well, you can actually come down to an equivalent Tesco price on a multi-pie deal. And they were able to respond to that. What we then did is working with Catherine and the team at Greenwich is that we set up a social media and PR campaign to promote these stores as really rewarding them for their efforts. And that led to widespread publicity, a launch attended by the leader of the council, and we then got coverage in the South London press, which was a major coup for the council. In Kingston, we worked initially on identifying the areas which were strategically important to this work, to identify key areas of deprivation and where those areas had limited access to healthy food supply. We were able to we identified 5 areas in total, and we then looked at those 5 areas and identified the independent retailers who were most important to those areas. And we identified 5 independent convenience stores that were the first access point for the families living in these deprived areas. And we focused initially on Healthy Start. So we were able to say that to the retailers that there is a large number of Healthy Start vouchers being issued to families who live within a 300-yard walking distance of your shop. By not promoting that you accept Healthy Start vouchers or registering, you're missing out on a marketing channel and on an amount of money, which is £4, it would be £4.5 per child per family, and those were simply going to the larger supermarkets, so they were missing out. What was interesting is that the retailers had no idea that this scheme existed, and simply by showing them that there was a marketing and also a commercial value associated to being able to accept the vouchers was enough for us to be able to sign up all 5. And here's just an example. Hawks Local sits alongside Waitrose, Sainsbury's, Wilko's and Lidl because he's the first of the 5 to have got his registration form in. The process currently is onerous. You have to print out forms, you have to sign them, you have to post them. There are a few hurdles for independence, and that's something that I'm sure will get easier as the scheme develops. And Jabeen will talk about Tony's shortly. Another issue that came up is that some stores had actually already registered, but then deregistered because of customer feedback, where customers were trying to buy the wrong items and it became aggressive in the store when the retailer was the one having to tell them no, they couldn't buy, alcohol or unhealthy items. So there were some issues there for retailers, which again, we'll be learning a lot about as we maintain the engagement with these stores. 2 retailers are going to focus on the range of fresh foods that fall within the Healthy Start scheme and promote them more widely. And we've also now linked the children's centres to promoting those individual stores to their families. If I just had some top tips of how to engage with independent retailers, basically understand the challenges of running an independent business. Think of it from their perspective, not from yours. Help the retailer understand the opportunity that COVID has shown them. So increasing basket spend and attracting new customers is now possible because the pandemic showed customers that shopping local is possible. And not only is it possible, but ranges are good in these stores. But the retailers have to match affordability and availability of healthier options in order to maximize that new footfall. Make him feel special. We talked about retailers saying, you have been chosen, and we have looked at literally from 200 stores in Plumstead, we chose 3. We made those retailers feel special, and in Kingston, we chose out of 245, we chose 5. We framed it to be valuable to them. We provided expert advice that is relevant to them and their store. We created a tangible action plan that they could then understand and be responsible for. And as I say, we produced the materials. I think the leadership that's come from this has been amazing. Southwark has taken the Good Food Retail work from 2019 and embedded it into their borough-wide food plan. The good food plans have excellence and best practice running right throughout them. It needs to be contained, it needs to be shared, and it needs to be pulled into one network, which everybody then can use collectively. And Catherine will talk about healthy living in Scotland, and that's a great example. And lastly, convenience stores are willing to engage with this. We're working with their wholesalers who influence their supply now. That's really exciting work, which we can share with you as it develops. And the whole aim of this is that we are able to make a practical on the ground difference to increasing affordable, healthy food. And thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Stephanie. And we will have a chance to quiz Stephanie a little bit later on some of her work and her ideas. So do think of any questions that you've got for when we have our panel Q&A a bit later. I think we're now going to head over to Catherine. So the other side of the story from Greenwich is what does this look like from the council perspective for officers that are working within the council? Catherine is the senior public health manager at the Royal Borough of Greenwich, and I have to say Catherine is a real champion of our work, and by our work I mean the work of the sector, good food and farming. She really gets it and really gets it from a health promotion and public health point of view, and has been doing that for over 20 years. So has a real wealth of experience and learning. She's currently leads on the Cross-Borough Healthy Weight Action Plan and has a particular focus on food environment. So over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. I've got a menu bar over my top line, so I can't go to full screen, but can people see the slides as it is? There's only 2.
Yeah, I think that's fine, don't worry.
Yeah, apologise. Thank you. So from a council perspective, we just wanted to flag a couple of things really. It feels like the main learning was an understanding of the real multi-dimensional element to this programme. There is not one lead department for this to be a success. So the pilot gave us a chance to explore this work, if you like, from different angles and come to that conclusion that for success, you can't underestimate the importance of this work being considered by a number of departments in the council. Stephanie, she allowed this work to happen really. We commissioned Stephanie and she helped us to join agendas together. Commissioning her gave us expertise and capacity for the engagement and the work on the ground. And that would have been challenging during COVID-19, and it took the pressure off some very busy departments at the time. The environmental health officers were, equally important. They helped us identify stores, and they helped us consider standards within this work as well. And then business support, they help with engagement, business planning, communication, and links to other economic development interventions. So we have a shop local drive. So, it's about making sure that everything's connected in that way. The design and comms team, they really brought the project to life. So the logo kept the brand linked with our Good Food in Greenwich partnership. And then the comms told the story. And then lastly, you do need public health people, I think. That's just to keep things on track, link people together, keep the conversation going. What do we do next? And ultimately as well, keep the work grounded in public health messages. The second point seems really simple and obvious, but the fact that we could actually drive up sales was a great thing to find from this pilot. So we have trialled this work before, but found it hard to collect the data to evidence this claim. So this pilot has allowed us to gather that evidence, and now we can confidently make the claim that we can drive up sales of healthier produce with a coordinated effort. And that, that's a really powerful statement to be able to make. The second slide, just a few points really from our learning from our cross-borough post-pilot workshop. So we had a range of partners at a workshop, and the feedback from participants included the need for a mixed model. So there's not a kind of one size fits all going forward, we don't think. Some shops are demonstrating good food retail already, and how do we recognise them whilst we support the shops that need more detailed input? We need to make the most of the pilot as positive case studies, link up a number of good food retail initiatives, particularly Healthy Start and convenience stores. There's masses to link there, but also procurement, healthy advertising policies, waste reduction, some of the things that have been mentioned before. And then really our final realization is that the pilot is just the beginning. So whilst we've been planning quite detailed work for our pilot, our challenge now is to sustain this work. And that's what we're working out at the moment. We are looking at how we secure budgets and commitment to develop things further. And we need to embed our convenience store work into our good food retail work, and then our good food retail work into broader council thinking. So I think we're on that journey, but there's still more to do. And this will be a priority for us going forward for the next year. So that's just a couple of things from me about the Greenwich perspective from the council. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. I'm now going to hand over to our next speaker, who is Jabeen Shah, who is the Public Health Nutrition Lead at Kingston Council. And Jabeen led their Good Food Retail project in Kingston this year. Jabeen joined the Borough of Kingston Council in September 2020, so quite recently, and previously worked at Kingston and St Mary's University as a nutrition lecturer, as well as studying a PhD in child and adolescent obesity and ethnic differences. So Jabeen, if you'd like to come in now and tell us about your experience of the Good Food Retail project in Kingston.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Jumped ahead. So, as Amy has already stated, that I started at the council only in September 2020. I've been providing maternity cover for Francesca Miller, who was successful in putting the application to the GLA for this project. And so she left before the pandemic, and so I was very late in joining this party and had to rapidly play catch up to complete the project within the deadline. So I was sorry for the busy slide, but I just wanted to cram in as much information as possible. So in addition to employing Rice Marketing for doing the food desert mapping work and retailer engagement, part of our plan was also to promote the uptake of Healthy Start vouchers. So we also tried to engage with retailers. So with the help of our economic development team, we put out a newsletter through the Business Improvement District, as well as through our own newsletters, the business and resident newsletters. And really the aim was to sort of highlight again the value of Healthy Start vouchers to the smaller retailers, to increase the the sign up to these schemes. But that was very challenging, and I think really Rice Marketing with their expertise came in and helped a lot with the work that they did. And then additionally, we had the Healthy Start working group, and we worked with Kingston Voluntary Action and Achieving for Children. It's already been mentioned, Brenda Wood, who's the Children's Centre Manager, and ran a number of social media campaigns. And Brenda also sent out emails to all the sort of Kingston nurseries and preschools with information and links to the Healthy Start scheme to encourage the uptake of Healthy Start by eligible families. And then we also put forward a lot of information on our own website, our platform called Connected Kingston, to sort of promote the uptake of Healthy Start vouchers, both to retailers as well as to eligible people. And then we put out leaflets and posters, as you can see here on the slide. So we updated that to make sure that it was only at the relevant sites, because during the pandemic there were fewer centres that were distributing the Healthy Start vitamins, for instance. And then we sent out over 70 posters across various notice boards throughout the borough, using the help of our local rangers, and sent out over 2,000 leaflets to local pharmacies, as well as a poster that went out to each pharmacy. And then leaflets also went out to food banks and various other charities, such as Bright Boxes, who were distributing food parcels throughout the pandemic and obviously beyond. We also engaged with a local fruit and vegetable holder, which I'll mention in the next slide, Tony, who's with our help and support managed to sign up to the Healthy Start scheme and start accepting Healthy Start vouchers. And then just this little graph here I've put together just to show you the uptake figures. So the blue line represents the uptake for Kingston in terms of Healthy Start uptake. And so you can see in March, we were quite similar to the London average, which is the orange line. And then following the London average, our numbers uptake fell through the pandemic. And then a big drive in October, we saw a considerable increase in the uptake of Healthy Start vouchers from to 52%, which was similar to the pre-pandemic figures. And then this is just to show you our local hero, Tony, who's been around in Kingston running his market store for, I think, well over 20 years. This is his Facebook post when he successfully signed up to the Healthy Start voucher scheme with our support, and has also been accepting vouchers on behalf of other stall holders who don't have the capacity to sort of go through the whole rigmarole of registering for this scheme. And then really what our key learnings are and next steps, something that I found was extremely challenging, and I think it's already been stated, is that engaging with retailers is not easy. When their bottom line is obviously profit and their margins are very small. So we really did need Stephanie from Rice Marketing, who kind of saved the day in terms of getting this project delivered, engaging with the retailers, doing the food desert mapping work, and establishing this contact and registering 5 retailers, local retailers, to sign up to the scheme, and sustain providing that platform and sharing the sort of knowledge experience of other boroughs and contacts, such as helping us to find Stephanie as well, has been critical with the, through the whole process. And for us, this is really the start of the conversation. We really need to keep the momentum going, and would really appreciate continued support from Sustain as well as the GLA to help us through to the next step, because you can't really leave it here. There's so much more work to be done. So we've also set up, there's a local charity that set up the Good Food Co-op, Voices of Hope charity, as well as Bright Boxes, and possible promotion through the retailers could be to use these charities. The Good Food Co-op, for instance, is a fruit and veg box scheme that is being promoted online, but if we could engage that, potentially engage with retailers to help promote fruit and veg affordable prices, that would be something that we need to consider for the future. We're really excited about the work that's being done in Scotland, which is obviously this nationally funded approach in Scotland, the Healthy Family Programme, and we've already had a discussion with them internally. And I'm a real firm believer in not reinventing the wheel, and really learning from others and taking this to the next step. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to, I'm not sure.
Sorry.
That's all right, no, don't apologise. I'm just checking that people can see and hear me. I'm just going to invite Catherine and Jabine and Stephanie just to take a couple of questions at this junction, just before we go into the other Catherine with the K's presentation. One question that came in that interested me, which I'd be really keen to hear your views on, was interestingly, a lot of the questions are about definitions. So I told you we would get sucked into this definition trap. But one of the questions that came in asked about what we mean by healthy food, and I'd be interested for you to share some top line thoughts on. Obviously, I also think there's a difference between healthy food and healthier options. But in the context of this project, how did you define what sort of foods that you were looking to encourage sales of? Catherine, did you want to come in on that?
Yes, so Stephanie has actually got a really nice slide which does define it, and I'm just going to share it quickly, if that's okay, Stephanie.
Yeah.
If I can, because not everybody needs to see my emails. Apologies. Can people see that diagram?
Yay.
So this, I believe, Stephanie, not to talk on your behalf here, but this really came out of the Southwark model, but we just we didn't really need to reinvent the wheel again, and we might do some local work around this, but it felt like some good consultation work had been done, and we felt that this fit well with our approach, and many of these items are covered by Healthy Start. So again, that was another win. But Stephanie, do you want to say how this came to life?
So following the Good Food Retail Plan pilot in Southwark, Rosie, public health lead at Southwark, commissioned this work from an independent researcher called Sophie Reed. So this is entirely her work. And she conducted a healthy basket study, which basically was able to identify the gap in availability and affordability of this basket of goods from community work with families in Southwark and Lambeth. And it was the reason why we liked it so much is because it is so practical. It is literally the food that families need to buy in order to be able to make decent, healthy, sensible weekly food for their families. And the reason why I liked it so much is because it's all within the reach of a convenience store, with the exception of chicken breast fillets, which, you know, if you're not an ambassador store, or no, probably neighborhood, high street and ambassador stores will be selling chicken breasts. Neighborhood stores, the small ones, will not. But the vast majority of the goods could be bought from a convenience store. And that's where we started, because the study showed the huge range in pricing. And it was that report that led me to come to Catherine and say, why don't we just try and get the pricing down on these, but on this basket of goods, and let's see if we can engage the retailers using range merchandising, promotion, point of sale, publicity. Let's use all of the retail levers at our disposal to get that price down. And that's what they did. And the customers responded because of the mix having covered all bases. You can't just reduce prices and then not tell anyone. The retailer just loses money and then puts the price back up because he's lost money. So you have to, it's as Catherine was saying in her slides, it's focus on simple things, and the retailers will get it. And that's a simple basket.
Right.
And the other thing I would say is that healthier is really important in convenience stores. I can't move a convenience store to not sell Coke. I can move a convenience store to selling more Coke Zero, or so in a soft drink capacity, which is probably 15% of their turnover. Selling more zero sugar soft drinks is important. At the same time, getting them to realize that they can sell fresh fruit and vegetables, even if it's a single apple or banana for snacking. So you just have to take a very practical, measured approach. Wholemeal bread is accessible to everybody. That would be my take. The challenge is things like fruit juice.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the line is drawn. Is it or is it not healthy?
Someone's asked if they can access that healthy basket list somewhere. Is that publicly available, or is that?
Yeah, that report, we can share that.
Yeah, there are some more questions that have come in sort of that I could go on to, but Amy, do you want to go take them at the end and move on to the next presentation, or do you want to?
Yeah, let's take them at the end. Good idea.
Okay.
I think it would now be good to introduce our final speaker, who is Catherine Neal, and she's joining us today from the Scottish government-funded programme Healthy Living, the Healthy Living programme in Scotland, which she has been a part of since 2014, starting as the development manager, but is now the director of the whole programme. And she's also got 20 years of experience in the convenience retail sector. And so, yeah, we're really excited, Catherine, to hear more about the Healthy Living programme, to give us some context out of London, in Scotland, and how you're working with retailers there.
Hi, thanks very much for asking me along today. I'm just going to share my screen just now. So I'm going to give you a wee run through just about how our programme works, and just about how we work and all the good work that we're actually doing up in Scotland at the moment. So a quick run through. I'm going to try and get through, because I know time's limited, try and get through, so I cover everything we do in the presentation. So the Scottish Grocers Healthy Living programme was first established in 2004. And it was to encourage the sale of fruit and vegetables throughout the convenience stores in Scotland. The aim of our programme is to focus on stores within areas of deprivation, as well as meeting the dietary objectives set by the Scottish Government. The programme's really gone from strength to strength over the last 16 years, and we now have over 2,300 stores who have joined our programme, and 67% of these stores are situated in areas of low income. And the local convenience store, it provides, and Stephanie's already covered this in her presentation, but it provides consumers with an important and easy way of purchasing fresh produce at an affordable price in small quantities, and often available right on the doorstep for consumers who don't have their own means of transport. And I think we'll all agree that we've seen this more, it's been demonstrated more than ever throughout the COVID pandemic. So what are the main objectives of our programme? We've got four main objectives that we need to cover. So we need to increase the range, availability, quality, affordability of fresh produce and other healthier products from all other categories in the convenience stores across Scotland. We need to focus on areas of deprivation, because we've identified that people in these areas don't have the same exposure to other healthier products, and don't always have the facilities or income to visit multiple stores to purchase that healthier choice. Where applicable, we support Scottish Government initiatives, and we monitor and assess the healthcare retail standards which is in place in all Scottish NHS hospitals if there's a shop, a tea bar or a trolley is on offer. Now, the way the programme's set up is we have 4 development managers that work within our programme who have vast experience of selling the healthier products within the retail sector, and they're able to demonstrate examples of what have worked well for retailers and share this best practice with other retailers. We're there to help encourage the increased sales and profits and help these retailers to help signpost the consumers to the healthier choices within their shops. The Healthy Living team are selling a concept rather than a brand, and this requires building of relationships and trust. And this is something that you can't do overnight. And both Stephanie and Javine have both highlighted that within their presentations as well. You know, like building these relationships with these retailers is key. A significant amount of work has been achieved over the last couple of years to profile the programme and make what we have current and relevant. And due to this, we now work with a number of independent small retailers, but also all the major symbol groups within the convenience sector. And we work closely with these groups to offer discounted prices on fresh and other healthier products. And we follow our guidance from Food Standards Scotland. With the work that the programme leads on, the symbol groups encourage their retailers to have in-store point of sale and stands provided free of charge by our programme. And these stands and point of sale materials create an in-store theatre of healthier products and help educate the consumer on purchasing the healthier choice. We changed the strapline for our programme a couple of years ago to Love Life, Eat Well. And this strapline provides a call to action for the consumer. It makes them stop and think about their choice rather than being told what they must purchase. Many of the convenience store retailers are now beginning to stock loose produce and use our stands to merchandise this offering. And selling loose, it has many benefits. It reduces your packaging, it allows consumers on low incomes or living alone to purchase just one piece of produce, and it also reduces waste. We have seen the stands, the sales increase for our stands up to 30% for the convenience retailers when they put the stand at the front of the store. Our stands have recently become mobile, and it allows the retailer to move the stand to see key selling locations throughout the day. Many of our retailers have the stand allocated at food to go stations at lunchtime, and then they capitalise on the till point opportunity at other points of the day. Community engagement is essential for any small convenience store to be successful. And in 2016, the Healthy Living programme identified a potential link with the local convenience store and the wider community of how we can educate children and adults into buying the healthier products. And this was where the concept of our events began. So the Healthy Living programme, we run 2 different events, currently linking with the local primary schools. The first event we call as a big breakfast, and this is where the retailer along with our team go into the local school one morning and we serve the whole school a healthy breakfast. We link with the wholesalers, and the store tends to have special offers on any of the products that we have offered at the breakfast, and we're trying to encourage the parents then to buy these options when the pupils go home and explain what they've actually had to sample that morning. Our second event is a Healthy Living Day, and this event is actually carried out in the local convenience store. Throughout the course of the day, the pupils come from the primary school class by class. The pupils are then encouraged to come back into the store later in the evening with parents and carers, and they do a mini treasure hunt where they point out all the healthier products that we've already set up. This event is key because through the children, we can help educate the parents into buying that healthier product. At both events, the pupils are all given a voucher to redeem back in store for a piece of fruit or a bottle of water. This encourages the parents to visit the store, which increases the footfall for the retailer, awareness of healthy eating, and, as I've already mentioned, education for both pupils and parents. These events help to embed the programme, but also they build on these key relationships that we're all talking about trying to get the retailers to engage with us. As a programme, we've now spoken to over 14,500 pupils across Scotland. We launched our Wellbe Club in November of 2019, where children would be given their own loyalty card when they buy a single piece of fruit. The card is stamped, buy 4 and number 5 is free. It's a very simple concept, but it gives the children and young people their own card and hopefully encourage them to make the healthier choice for snack time. One retailer saw sales of loose fruit increase by 200% in the first week of running the loyalty club. But due to COVID, we've all had to think differently, and we had to devise a plan to help retailers whilst our field team weren't always allowed to be in the stores. So we identified that during the pandemic that cooking for home was becoming a trend and very popular. So we have now launched our Wellbe Cooking at Home initiative. The recipes are aimed at children and hopefully will aid in the cooking at home concept. We are giving out reusable shopping bags, which are given out through an in-store promotion. And these bags have a QR code on them. When scanned, it directs the consumer to our website and they're able to access all the recipes that we have on offer. And we get our recipes provided by the Parent Club in Scotland, which is another Scottish Government initiative. So government support is fundamental to the running of our programme, and we are very, very fortunate in Scotland to have this opportunity, and we wouldn't be able to run without our government support. However, engagement on all levels to have the programme recognised is key. And over the last year, we have increased our presence on social media and created our own website. And during the pandemic especially, the website has opened up a window of opportunities for us to enable us to showcase the work that we've achieved. But to ensure the longevity of the programme, we need to be moving forward all the time and really engaging with our retailers and listening to what they want within their stores. And we also need to work together with the sector and linking with other government policies where applicable. One government policy that I think that will interest you, because we have been talking about Healthy Start vouchers so far, is that the Best Start card was actually launched in Scotland and it replaced the Healthy Start vouchers in August 2019. The Best Start foods have increased their weekly payment to £3.10 to £4.25 a week for pregnant mothers and children aged 1 to 2 year old, and from £6.20 to £8.50 a week for children under the age of 1. Best Start Foods has improved the choice and supported a variety of dietary needs by widening the lists of foods that families can now purchase with the card. The Best Start food payments are made eligible to pregnant women from the first time they know they are pregnant. And this early support really helps the mother's nutrition from the early stages of a child's life, whereas the Healthy Start scheme in comparison is paid from verification of pregnancy. The card is a contactless payment card that reduces the stigma of having a voucher in store, of the consumer giving over a voucher. And the retailer instantly gets the money in their systems rather than in previous years having to send the vouchers away and been awaiting on them being processed. And again, that was something that Stephanie mentioned in her presentation earlier. So since its launch, there's now over 37,000 families in Scotland have been provided with a card. And the estimated uptake for 2021-22 is that they estimate they'll get to 75% of uptake. The Best Start card complements the work that we're doing as a programme in the convenience stores, and our team helped in the communication of the transition of the Healthy Start vouchers to the Best Start card. And we were a point of call to the convenience retailers and any questions they had surrounding the Best Start scheme. So I realise I've probably gone through quite a wee bit there and just in terms of how our programme works, but just in summary, just to briefly, the main points I would take out about our programme is that community engagement is key to running a successful convenience store, and therefore it is a major consideration for us in the running of the Healthy Living programme and how it's actually going to work. We are seeing that convenience retailers are now willing to try and help offer that healthy product to the consumers, but they do require support and tools to be in place to assist. And there is now a trend that consumers are driving for that healthier option to be in store, and also now for the cook at home solutions. And just for more information, I have spoken about our website, but if anyone wants to look up our website at www.healthylivingprogramme.co.uk. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Catherine. I think I'm going to invite everyone in to have sort of a bit of a conversation now. Sort of I'll theme it around some of the questions that have come in. And also, I don't know if Jenny's here from the GLA. Is she? Can she come on? Is she a panelist, Amy, or is she an attendee?
Now a panelist.
now a panelist. There you go. So Jenny, feel free to come in as well, and maybe we can ask you a little bit about sort of the GLA, what the next steps are for the GLA. So I mean, we sort of delved a little bit into healthy food and the notion of healthier food. I was just wondering. Oh, are we spotlighting on Jenny, or is it just my screen? I was just wondering, so some questions have come in really, and one of the things I wanted to explore with the panelists is how we start to cross the silo of healthy into sustainable food. So I know that the work today is very much focused on the healthy food, and I suppose from my understanding of convenience store and the learning from Stephanie, it's very much about starting from where those stores are at and where they make their money at the moment and who their customers are. But I wonder what you think is the opportunity really to start to integrate some of that more sustainable production methods, or thinking about more sustainably produced foods into this work. I mean, are we a long way to go? What are the opportunities there? Have you got any thoughts or reflections for the audience here on that point? Any of you?
I would just say that in terms of supply, fruit and vegetables is always a challenge into convenience stores because of the volume that the convenience stores are selling. So I think if there were looking visionary, if there was a way of creating a sustainable supply route into convenience stores, either through working in partnership with the wholesalers or working direct through local hubs, I think that that is a way, and connecting obviously through local markets. I think that would be incredibly important as a way of getting retailers to understand that they don't have to go to a later market and buy at least £100 worth of goods, because otherwise there's no way they can go. So dealing with small volume but large numbers of stores would be a really good thing to think about.
And do you think within there's an opportunity then for sort of, someone also asked a question about collective buying and sort of buying groups within stores. Do you think there is opportunity for that?
Individual retailers won't work collaboratively with each other. I think that the route there would be through the wholesaler and the councils. So I do think there's a massive opportunity for boroughs to collectively work together, so that there is a London pan-wide contract, for example, for food, that is then working with a number of wholesalers, of which, you know, obviously the Best Way, for example, has got 7,000 customers alone in London. They're already supplying into these stores. So it's how you can make that into a formidable buying group, but you can't work individually at store level. It's too small.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are obviously these huge challenges, and I think from one of the, I think in response to some of the questions as well, I mean, one of the biggest challenges that we see is a lot of this is about price, and obviously at the moment, food that is farmed in a way that's good for the environment and that uses agroecological, regenerative, or organic practices is more expensive at point of sale, and I suppose that's part of the challenge. I mean, Catherine, was you going to come in on this point about how do we bring sustainability along with this message around healthy food?
I was just going to say that I think the sustainability strand is probably a little bit more progressed in other elements of good food retail other than the convenience stores at the moment. So I'm thinking where people have maybe community-based markets or farmers markets in their areas that they can influence, it feels to me that that's the sort of area that you can kind of really build your case studies and your evidence in the way that we have done for convenience stores and healthy profit models. And then as you build these different bits of evidence, it's then about how we bring it together and move towards integrating that into other forms of retail. So I think it's all a journey, isn't it? There's steps to take, but I think there are good things happening probably in other parts of the retail sector than maybe the convenience stores at the moment, in my experience in our borough.
And I think that also demonstrates why there's only so far you can go with initiatives that work at the store level. So if you look at something like sugary drinks, that's where you see, how important it is to bring in the sort of fiscal measures that balance the playing field between healthier and unhealthier options. And the same applies, I suppose, to sustainability. How do we level the playing field so that actually it makes financial as well as environmental sense to buy the good options? Jabina, do you want to come in here? And yeah, obviously the work that you've done down in Kingston has tried to address that a little bit, so that the veg box that you're...
Yeah, so I mean, I briefly mentioned it, I just threw it in at the last minute, actually, the Good Food Co-op and Bright Boxes. So the Good Food Co-op is and the Bright Boxes is run by the Voices of Hope charity, and we've been supporting them along with the KVA, Kingston Voluntary Action. And that's only been very recently set up, the Good Food Co-op, which is this fruit and veg box scheme where they've sort of teamed up with a supplier from a farm rather, in Chessington, I believe, and they're getting spray-free fruit and vegetables from them. So it's local, obviously sustainable produce that's being delivered at sort of a full market price to those that can afford it online, and then using the profits to subsidise the fruit and veg for those that obviously can't afford it. And then the Bright Boxes is a like a Hello Fresh. It's a complete all the ingredients put together with a recipe for families to make a meal for a family of 5, vulnerable family, to cook at home. So encouraging home cooking as well. So I was quite excited to learn from Catherine about how they've got this Wellbe scheme and whether we can use these Good Food Co-op and Bright Boxes to engage with retailers in some way. So these are just thoughts at the moment, and how we can turn that into something practical, where we're bringing in the smaller retailers to help support the local retailer market, as well as support.
I mean, I'm sort of quite interested, Jabine, in how Kingston sort of took the step into supporting that sort of initiative, because it's not every local authority that is supporting a voluntary sector to set up a veg box. So I think it's fantastic, and we should really be celebrating that. But how can other councils sort of go down that road? What do you think it is that unlocked that?
Well, I think it's just engaging with the charity. So this charity has been around for a while, and I think during the sort of pandemic, people were coming up with different ideas to help support families that are vulnerable, suffering from food insecurity. So the idea came about. They were an established charity and were able to sort of put this together. And because we work closely with them, I think many boroughs work closely with the charities, that we could help to promote that and support that as well. And I mean, what we're currently doing in terms of helping Bright Boxes and the Good Food Co-op is sort of working with the sort of recipe analysis, nutritional analysis work as well, because we've got the sort of capacity to help them in supporting that side of things. And it's all about sort of trying to, bring that together and then engaging with schools. So there's a lot of work to be done, and bringing them together. You need the right team on the ground to do that. So it is a challenge, but
very exciting. We'll be watching. Well, we'll be with you on the journey, Jabine.
Yeah.
It felt like this was a good time to bring Jenny in, actually, because Jenny, that sort of touches on, I suppose, where the GLA is going next. Obviously, the GLA have been sort of instrumental in driving forward the work on good food retail, and it's in the London food strategy as an area. But Jenny, do you want to share what's the next step for the mayor and the food team in this journey?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Firstly, I just want to reiterate the importance of good food retail, especially within the current economic climate that we find ourselves in now. I also want to say a big thanks to all the boroughs who have worked with us and Sustain on their good food retail plans and projects, and all the commitment that they've shown throughout. This has been a really small investment on our side, but it's just the start of something much bigger for each of these local authorities in ensuring that those most in need are able to access healthy, sustainable and affordable food. I really hope that this work will inspire other local authorities to work with their local retailers too, especially in the most deprived wards in their boroughs, to increase affordable and healthy food options to those on a low income. Whilst we won't be able to fund any more good food retail projects, we will continue to take forward this work in increasing access to healthy food and ensuring a good food economy through other means. So most of you will know now that as part of the London Recovery Programme, food cuts across the 9 recovery missions to varying extents. So the Healthy Food, Healthy Weight mission, for instance, has a key objective that by 2025, every Londoner lives in a healthy food neighbourhood. A key element of these healthy food neighbourhoods will be improved accessibility of healthier food options on local high streets, which can be achieved through several means, including by providing healthier catering commitment training to local food businesses. This is something that the GLA, Association of London Environmental Health Managers, and local authorities have invested in since 2012. The scheme targets incremental, healthier changes to ingredients, cooking processes, and portion sizes. And the accreditation strategic importance and pan-London impact has been recognised by the scheme's inclusion in the GLA's London Child Obesity Task Force Action Plan and the New London Plan, which stipulates any new A5 takeaway outlets opening within 400 metres of schools are now required to meet the scheme's criteria. And on the final point, in January, the GLA food team, we launched the Food Routes Incubator Programme to support partnerships between smaller frontline VCS organisations and local authorities as part of the Robust Safety Net mission. So a large number of partnerships have now applied to the programme, which will help support organisational stability and address the underlying drivers of food insecurity. In addition to the incubator support, food partnerships will receive to grow, diversify and become more sustainable. They will also receive small grants to deliver initiatives addressing food insecurity, which must align with one of 3 key objectives. And this includes improving physical access to healthy food. So hopefully that's a bit of a flavour of the kind of work we're doing to take this forward.
Yeah, so while the work isn't specifically focused on retail, I suppose we'll be looking for the opportunities for that within London, and I'm sure that me and Stephanie and others will be continuing to look for opportunities for how we can have a sort of more London-wide approach to some of these issues. So that's great. So thank you for that, Jenny. Catherine, I just wondered, Catherine from Scotland, Catherine Neal, I just wondered if you'd also come across or have been reflecting on this idea of sort of sourcing produce and where the produce, you know, what's the sustainability angle of the supply chains that you're feeding into? Does that come into the work in Scotland?
Yeah, it does. I mean, we are very fortunate in Scotland that we have quite a close area of the wholesalers who do supply the fresh produce into the stores. So we have we are really lucky with the supply chain that we have that supplies these stores. And as we've already highlighted, you know, we work very closely with these wholesalers, so we are able to negotiate prices for the convenience trade as well. And one example we're doing at the moment within Booker shops, we've got a promotion on the bananas. So you buy a bunch of bananas for 69p. So we try and work ahead of the game and work with the promotional calendars that the wholesalers are using. So then they can then drive that back into the retailer stores. So we are very fortunate here.
Do you think that the next step in that journey then could be, you know, produce that is addressing the climate and nature emergency? So, for example, you know, could those bananas be fair trade, or, you know, could any of the fresh produce be organic? I suppose, you know, this is where the two worlds are coming together. There's many people on this webinar today who are really interested in the sort of regenerative farming and sustainable practices, and then we've got our public health people who are interested in health. So I suppose do you feel that there is opportunity to bring those two together, or is the pricing element still going to be the biggest challenge in that area?
I think pricing will always be the biggest challenge. I really do. But it is something that we're working with in Scottish Government, very much supporting local as well. And I know through the pandemic, that's come more to the forefront as well, about supporting local suppliers. And there is another initiative running within Scottish Government just now to encourage shop local. But I do think when you're talking about organic, you always are going to have that price point there. That's always going to be a bit of a challenge. But the thing that I always say is we all need to work together on this, and we all need to, especially as a sector, in Scotland, the convenience sector is quite small. So the more we can work together with this, and the more we can work with the different symbol groups and try and get that price point down, you know, that's what the key is.
And I suppose for some of us, it's also looking at how, yeah, the different models, and one of the examples just to share is the Tower Hamlets, the Women's Environment Network Just Food projects. So they're going to be working specifically with market traders to look at how they can get produce in with lower carbon footprint. But for all my colleagues working in the sustainability space, I would say the first step is to get the fresh in, and then once we've got the fresh in and we're reducing the sort of ultra processed foods, then the next step is to get that into sustainability. So there is some steps to take, and I think that's why we also need to be campaigning on this stuff. Jabeen, was you going to come in on that as well?
I just wanted to just make the point that, you know, the work that Catherine they're doing in Scotland is working with the families in the schools as well to create that demand, because obviously without the demand for fruit and vegetables, people aren't going to go to these shops to buy them in the first place. So, and obviously the retailers aren't going to stock them if the demand isn't there. So we kind of need to work as a community to create that demand, to educate the families, the children, to purchase healthier foods, to cook from scratch, and create that demand as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting point. I was just going to ask panelists as well to share, I think, the opportunities maybe that have been presented during the pandemic. You know, obviously there's been some fantastically huge challenges that have been presented to all of us. But I mean, Stephanie, did you want to share what you think the opportunities are as a result of the pandemic? What's changed?
I think the first thing is that retailers are looking for support in whatever form it comes. So readily accepting advice and being open to learning and improving. That's definitely one thing that's come out of this. So opening mindsets is really evident. The second is that customers have tried local shops for the first time in lockdown 1. And the challenge is to keep those customers coming back in now that the environment is changing again. And it's not just new customers, it's also customers spending more in those existing shops. So basket spend's going up as well. And retailers are their own worst enemies. They will range to what they think as opposed to what is out there as a real opportunity for customer demand. And our job really is to show them the market and the category trends, the fact that healthier snacking is growing, the fact that you've got so many growth categories in lower sugar, lower salt, lower fat options. We've got to try and help these retailers realize that that is for them. It's not just for the larger supermarkets to sell.
Yeah, no, I've been seeing organic eggs in my local convenience store, which hasn't nothing anywhere near that. I don't think I think they skipped free range and went straight to organic, which has been really interesting. Yeah, I mean, Catherine, I wondered, Catherine Hannafin, if you could also just share about some of the experiences of trying to work across departments. I mean, do you think that there is more of an appetite for that now, or do you think that actually the challenges of COVID mean that cross-departmental working for councils is even harder?
Yeah, I think it was one of those strange things that whilst people were very busy, they had to kind of forge links very quickly with other departments, probably more quickly than, you know, in normal times. I mean, personally, we found that quite beneficial to carry on those links. But, you know, we'll have to see that. We hope that we just don't all fall into maybe the patterns of before, where it's hard to keep that joint working, the momentum around that. But, you know, I think we're feeling positive that the relationships were built so that, you know, we should be able to carry on. Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I've just spotted the time. Time flies when you're having fun and talking subject that you've been immersed in for the last however many months. So I just wanted to say a massive thank you to everybody again. And just to any of those of you that are working within looking at good food retail and good food economy within the London context, we are looking at possibly creating a peer support group that can continue to check in on this work and not hold each other to account, but continue to motivate each other to do this work. So I know it's something that Jabeen and Stephanie and I'm sure Catherine and other colleagues will be involved in. So do let us know if you're interested. do check out our report. As I said, it's out today. You know, it is very much a first step on where local authorities are taking action at the moment. And we do know there's a lot more work to be done, but we will be continuing to support and inspire local authorities to take that action. If any of you work with or from a food enterprise, we have just launched a survey today just to look at these opportunities from an enterprise point of view and to see what the experiences have been over the last year. So please do encourage people to do that survey. I'm sure that will all be in the chat. I know people were very keen to get hold of a copy of that healthy food basket, so we'll track that down and send that to all participants as well. But other than that, just to say a massive thank you to all of our attendees and to all of our presenters today. We're really excited by what happens next, so we look forward to working with you all. Thanks very much, and thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
And Ren in the background helping us with Zoom. So very, very smooth. So yeah, thank you everyone.
Thanks.
You.
Thanks very much.
Stephanie, where do we get a copy of the healthy basket? Is it?
I'll send it to you and you can send it out.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. That's really great. And yeah, and do let us know when your reports are out and about in the world.
Will do.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Wonderful. Oh. How you doing, Amy? All right. Hi, Ren.
Good.
Good, good. I know. How beautiful does that sunshine look? We all deserve a walk, I think.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Went quick, right?
I know, really quickly.
You never stop.
Yeah. It's very, I know people are still on, I'm not saying anything that I wouldn't say publicly, but it's very interesting how we're still in this place where, you know, you've got health and sustainability. It's like they're starting to touch, but it's like pushing those two circles together to create this Venn diagram of joy in the middle. So yeah, I mean that's where I think the next big funding pot needs to focus on, is like, how do you bring that together? How do you bring health and sustainability rather than continuing the siloing of it?
Absolutely there, isn't it?
Questions, wasn't it, on food growing and supply chain when we didn't?
Yeah, I didn't have time to get to that question. I also think, you know, I don't know how. I mean, it's quite a complicated one for people working within within retail to think about, you know, food growing. And you know, I can't imagine a day when a small garden is going to be supplying a convenience store. But you know, there are opportunities for food growing to supply their own communities. But at that point, is it economy? Is it economy if you're not buying it?
Very good question.
Ruth?
Yeah, I just bumped Ruth up. Sorry, I didn't do it before.
Hi, Ruth. Yes, it's interesting, isn't it? That continued, like, you can see the people in the chat that are focused on sustainability, and you can also see the people that are focused on health and affordability, and the idea to go to a convenience store and say, what about sourcing organic, you know.
Can we go on Teams, because this will be recording, so this is on.
All right, yeah, cool. I was just sharing my reflections of the challenge.